How's it going, everybody? I have to say this before I get started tonight. I'm a little scared to be here. As a matter of fact, I want to make this statement before I start. I don't want to be anybody's hero. I just want to be human. I remember the night so vividly. My wife and I got dressed all up. She made me look fancy. I put on my best shoes and a suit that I had just gotten, and my son said, "Dad, that suit looks really sharp." We make our way to this event to be celebrated. During COVID-19 and the pandemic, our organization provided hand washing stations so people would have access to be able to wash their hands if they were living on the street. And this national organization said, "Hey, I want you to come here and hang out with us because we want to celebrate you." It was a weary moment, you all, because we're in the middle of the pandemic. So me and my wife, we talked to each other and we said, "Yeah, we'll go just to celebrate and be thankful for what we have been able to do in serving our community." And just like any other couple would, we got there, we started dancing, and then we got the award. But grief and sorrow met our joy that night. I remember leaving this dinner with friends, and I asked my wife if she would drive the car. "Just drive, would you drive, please?" And my wife says, "Mm-hmm." She agreed. She hops in the driver's seat, and then she starts to drive. I was tired and weary that day, and I fell asleep in the passenger seat, only to wake up on the ground. I remember waking up on the ground because I had blacked out, and I looked up at a mangled car. We had gotten into an accident, and the car hit us. And I saw my wife limping around the car, and I had this moment, you all. I had this moment where I said, this might be it, because I heard the EMT yell out these words to a crowd of people. He says, "Flip him over to see if he's still alive." I black out again, and I wake up in the ambulance, and I find myself in Grady Hospital with the doctor standing over me. He says, "Terence, I have to be honest, we have to do two things, and we have to do them really quickly. We have to operate and do 2 surgeries to prevent further nerve damage." 7 hours in the operating room, and I wake up with the orthopedic surgeon standing on top of me, over me, and he says these words, "I have some good news, but then I have some not so good news." I say, "Well, what is the good news?" And he says, "Well, the surgery went well, but it's going to be 6 months to a year before you can walk again." It was a disruption in my life that I wasn't prepared for. And nothing prepares you for a disruption, and nothing prepares you for the shame that you feel when a disruption hits your life. And there I was in pain and in agony, and I'm asking myself, trying to muster up the strength, how do I go forward from here? And there may be many people here tonight, and you've had your lives disrupted, and you're asking the question, how do I get to it there when I feel like I'm stuck right here? I was disrupted. And then the next day came. And I was wondering about this contrast. How do I go from partnering with major brands all around the country to make sure that people had access to sanitation because they didn't have the privilege to wash their hands, to now having to try to walk again? When disruption hits our lives, sometimes it can leave us feeling like everything that we've hoped for and everything that we've strived for and everything that we're dreaming about somehow is coming to an end. And I found myself in a position where I felt like this disruption was causing everything to end. But then Andy comes in my room. Andy was a nurse that literally cared about his patients. As a matter of fact, Andy empathized and got proximate to me even when I couldn't move, and even when I was in pain, and even when I was taking 24 to 26 pills a day just to cope with the nerve pain that this disruption in my life had caused. And Andy says this, he says, "You're going through a moment, but this is not your entire life." And I just want to parenthetically pause tonight and just encourage somebody that maybe this disruption that you're experiencing in your life, it may be a moment, but I want to remind you that it's not your entire life. Disruptions cause us to become clear. Because Andy would remind me day in and day out, man, like, you still have life and you still have breath and you still have dreams. But I'm like, Andy, you don't understand. I'm working on my PhD. I was leading an organization and now I cannot move anymore. What do I do with this disruption? And you know what Andy tells me? Andy says, talk to your wife. Yeah. And that's what I did. Because on day 9 in the hospital, of spending almost 26 days in the hospital, I asked my wife, I said, man, babe, do you think I should quit? Do you think I should give up? Do you think I should quit my PhD program with 1 semester left? Do you think I should give up on the organization? Do you think I should give up on this dream? I know I did not come this far to allow a disruption to stop me. Should I give up? And you know what my wife tells me? She says, just because you can't move doesn't mean that you can't use your mind. Just because you can't move doesn't mean that you don't still have something to offer this world. And I want to encourage somebody who may be feeling stuck, who may feel like my here is all I can dream or think about at this very moment. Maybe just because you haven't had any movement doesn't mean that you still don't have anything to offer this world. You still have a dream. You still have something to create. You still have something to offer this world that could change the very trajectory of somebody else's life. Because the disruption has never powerful enough to define who you are. So I started to write, even in the hospital bed. I started writing, and I said, you know what? I cannot move, but I have something to still offer. I can't move, and my dream feels stuck right now, but my dream is still alive. It may feel like it's dormant, but it's still bubbling up on the inside of me. And there are some people in here today that may feel like your dream has been disrupted to the point where it's stuck and you have nothing to offer. But I want to remind you that it's not dormant, it's still alive. Will you have the courage to start again? And I had to ask myself a question. Will you choose to act on courage, or will you depend solely on the familiar? Because courage does not exist without fear, and courage does not exist without disruption, and courage does not exist without tension. Courage is saying, I'm going to do this regardless of what it looks like. I'm going to do it regardless of the fear. I'm going to still persist forward, even if I have to inch myself closer to my dream. Will you inch, or will you only and solely rely on the yesteryears of what happened? See, I had to have a real honest conversation with myself. I had to talk to my wife, and I had to say, I'm going to commit myself to continuing to start again, no matter how long it takes me. Because healing takes courage. It takes courage to heal from trauma, and it takes courage to get back up again and go after your dreams when you feel like all of the wind has been knocked out of you. It takes courage to say, I'm going to start pursuing this thing again, and I don't have to wait until another new year starts. I have the courage to start right now, today. How many of you in here tonight would say, man, I feel like I'm stuck and I can't even think about a there because I feel like here is overwhelming? I come to remind somebody that you still have possibility and you still have hope if you tap into the courage of starting again. And so I did. I had this friend named Jerome. Many of you know him as Dr. Jerome, who literally came to my house for 3 months straight on Sundays for hours. And he helped me learn how to walk again. I went from laying on the ground to having 2 surgeries, to a doctor telling me that it would take me almost a year to recover, to having a friend and my family support me in my greatest time of need, reminding me that my disruption does not define my worth and value. And I want to remind somebody today that your disruption, wherever you find yourself, it doesn't define you. And so I showed up. I showed up in pain. I showed up and I was vulnerable. I showed up when I didn't feel like it because I understood that it wasn't about the steps I was taking, it was about the inches that I was allowing to give me hope. When was the last time you allowed an inch to give you hope? An inch towards your dream. An inch towards the thing that you've been having in your heart for a long time. Sometimes we are so focused on the large steps that we're taking that we forget it's the inches that matter. If you're ever going to have the courage to start again, you've got to find hope in the inches. And for me, it's real. I discovered this, that starting over is different from finding courage to start again. Starting over is different from starting again, and most times when we have our lives disrupted, we think that our lives are so disrupted that, man, I have to just start over, and we forget that starting over means you go all the way back to the beginning, but starting again may feel like a pause, it may feel like a stop, but you also have all of the wisdom and all of the experience and all of the life experience that you've accumulated over time, and you just have to find the courage to start again. Some person in here today that's been struggling, and I want to remind you that tap into your inches, and you got to find that courage to just start again. You're not starting over, you're just finding the strength to say, I'm going to do this one more time in the face of fear. And that's what I did. I became the first PhD in my family. And this is big because I'm from the city of Atlanta. Slept in parks as a teenager, experiencing homelessness when I was a teenager. Had no vision of a future, had no examples in my family of ever striving to get a PhD. And my dream was to overcome all of the struggles, all of the dysfunction, all of the things that my family has had to wrestle with. And I was like, I'm not going to allow anything to stop me from having the courage to start again so I can obtain my dream. Why? Because my kids are watching me. People are watching me in the community, the unhoused population, people who are growing up in poverty right here in this city. And I would be remiss if I did not set that example for people to let them know it doesn't matter what social location you come from. It only matters if you keep getting back up and have the resilience you need to strive towards your dream. Will you have the courage to start again? And for me, I started to dream again. Our organization launched the first museum in the United States that represents the subject of homelessness. It's a museum, and it was housed in a shipping container, but now we are still dreaming to create one of the largest museums that represents the subject of homelessness, to teach people how to have empathy towards a population that is oftentimes invisible, the courage to start again. The courage to start again, where we say we don't treat people who are unhoused or don't have an address like they are people to be discarded, because just because a person doesn't have an address does not mean that they are not your neighbor. The courage to start again. The courage to use research and scholarship and storytelling to communicate this narrative that people, regardless if they have an address or not, matters, and they have worth and they have value, because I've seen the bottom of the bottom, and I want to tell people who may feel like they are stuck and can't move forward that you matter and that you have to have this courage to start again. And 2 weeks ago, after my dad passed away, I was in grief. I go from being in a hospital myself to going to the hospital all last year and spending over 100 days with him in the hospital that I couldn't even walk in. Questioning, how do I continue to go from here? And you don't want to know what the last things he told me? He says, man, you have to have a forever forward attitude. No matter what peaks or lows that you experience in life, forever forward. And maybe I just came here tonight because I had the courage to start again and walk on stage to tell you, you have to keep going and have a forever forward mentality and have the courage to start again as many times as it takes, just so you can achieve the dream that will impact somebody else's life. Will you have the courage to start again? I almost quit, but I just got an email 2 weeks ago saying that an organization is donating us land in this city. From tragedy to triumph, in the middle is where courage is born. So many times we only celebrate the mountaintop experiences and forget that fruit is grown in the valley. Will you embrace the fruit? Will you start with what you have left? Will you have the courage to start again? Thank you.